Dear listeners, thank you for your incredible support in helping our channel grow. We're aiming for 1,000 subscribers, so please support us by subscribing and helping us reach this milestone. Now let's start the story. Flashback, Ben and Jack, the trip to hell. Ramadi. Jack and I were in adjacent shower stalls because I wanted to be close to him in case his back acted up again. The corporal offered, "Why don't I go requisition some new BDUs and body armor for you two while you're taking a shower?" Jack stayed his irascible self and insulted, "That's a damn good idea since it will give you something to do instead of sitting on your butt." I apologized, "Sorry again for Sergeant Reynolds, that's a great idea." He took off, and I bitched, "Jack, why in the hell do you keep giving the corporal so much shit? He's a great kid and been a great help since we've been here." Jack swore, "Hell, Ben, we don't need a nursemaid to take care of us." I corrected his outlook. "Jack, he's more an aide than a nursemaid, and you need to start cutting him some slack before you get into trouble." Jack laughed. "What the hell sort of trouble?" I was going to remind him of how Colonel Maggie was a mother hen with her troops, but it was too late. She walked into the showers and declared, "What's this I hear that Sergeant Reynolds is giving the corporal I gave you two as an AITA ration of shit?" Jack complained, "What are you doing in the showers?" Colonel Maggie corrected him. "Excuse me, you surely wouldn't be talking to me in that manner and that tone of voice, would you?" I laughed as Jack backpedaled. "Sorry, sir. You just surprised me." Colonel Maggie ordered, "I don't have all day to wait on you two, so move your butts and stop giving the corporal shit." Jack replied, "Yes, sir." I didn't want to look a gift horse eye the mouth, so I took the opportunity to thank her. "Colonel Maggie, thank you for the real room and for making sure my ammo was in the room." She answered, "I noticed you put a lock on the door already. While we don't really have a problem with theft by the Marines and SEALs, you have to watch out for the Terps and other civilians as they will rob you blind." I asked, "Then how did my ammo survive?" Colonel Maggie smiled and answered, "You can thank the corporal for that. He's been standing watch over it day and night." Jack asked, "Don't tell me he was sleeping on our cots?" Colonel Maggie replied, "I would assume he did. You know, Sergeant Reynolds, if you don't like your room, I can easily find a bunk for you in the open barracks." Jack apologized, "Sorry, sir. It's just that my back is hurting some." Colonel Maggie jumped on his complaint in a heartbeat. "Sergeant Reynolds, you told me your back is just strained slightly. But if you're having this many problems with it, perhaps we need to get another MRI on it." Jack backpedaled again. "No, sir. I don't need another MRI. The first one just said I had some strained muscles." Colonel Maggie ordered, "Well then, Sergeant Reynolds, get your head out of your butt because it's embarrassing. Now finish up your showers, grab some chow, and get your butt to the CNC." The corporal came back with a big bag of what I assumed was our BDUs and other gear. Colonel Maggie saw him and said, "Son, if that crabby old Sergeant Reynolds gives you any more shit, let me know, and he will stay on the base and do KP for a week." The corporal lied his butt off. "Sir, he hasn't been that bad." Colonel Maggie advised, "Loyalty is a good trait, but you should never lie to an officer. I'm leaving, but I will know if he gives you any more shit. Now get them some chow and then to the CNC." The corporal saluted, Colonel Maggie returned it, and left the showers. I grinned at Jack, and he apologized. "Damn, I forgot that Colonel Maggie has her spies everywhere. I guess I've been a shit, so I need to fix this. Corporal, sorry for being such shit, and my back is no excuse for the way I've treated you." The corporal should have kept his mouth shut when he replied with, "That's okay, Sergeant, I was warned about you." Before Jack had a chance to dig his hole deeper, I interrupted, "Jack, I'm turning into a prune. Let's get the hell out of the showers and grab some chow." Thank God my distraction worked. I wonder why it worked, and decided the pills had finally kicked in. Jack agreed. I should have laid into the corporal again for his comment of being warned about me. But I knew better than to push things with the old bird, because if I kept pushing I knew she would put me on KP for a week. I agreed with Ben. "Yeah, let's get the hell out of Dodge and grab some chow." I looked at the corporal and asked, "So how's the chow here?" He made an awful face and answered, "Barely passable. And if it's one of the cook's worst dishes, many of us skip it and eat MREs." I swore, "What the hell? I thought the cooks improved in the Corps." The corporal answered, "They have it every place but here. Colonel Maggie has been trying to get a better cook in here, but command in Baghdad has them all sewn up." I laughed and said, "I bet she's a bigger pain in the butt to the cook than she was to me." The corporal laughed and said, "She's threatened to send him to Thule." Ben and I chuckled, and I said, "Damn, she's beginning to take after the old man. That is one of his favorite tricks." The corporal's eye got big, and he asked, "I'd heard rumors that the old man liked to do that, but I didn't think the stories were real. Do you know of anyone that he's actually sent to Thule?" I felt bad for being such a pain in the butt to this corporal and decided I liked him, so I replied, "You should ask Colonel Maggie about it." His face was masked with surprise, and he asked, "He sent her to Thule?" Ben added more information. "Yes, he did, but not because of anything she did. She was teaching a certain captain some much-needed lessons. We were dry and began to get dressed, and Ben reminded me, Jack, you might want to do like the SEALs and forget the underwear. I answered, thanks, Ben, I almost forgot about that. The corporal asked, I always wondered why the SEALs don't wear underwear. I asked one once, and he told me that because they were SEALs, they got so many women that it was quicker without them. Ben laughed and provided the real answer. Corporal, the SEALs are the masters of bullshit, and that's one of their favorite stories. When you're going to be in the field for a long time and not able to shower, you don't wear underwear because it traps the sweat and moisture against your skin and causes a nasty fungal infection called crotch rot. We were dressed, and I complimented our aide. Corporal, you did an excellent job on getting the sizes right on our BDUs. Ben added, and thanks for the new plate holder and plates. The corporal asked, Sergeant Blaine, what happened to the old plate holder? Ben answered, Corporal, it did its job and saved my butt. Now let's go eat. Corporal led the way. We entered the mess, and unlike most places, it was virtually deserted. Hell, there weren't even Marines sitting around and drinking coffee. I looked at the corporal and asked, don't tell me, is today one of the days most people eat MREs? He answered, yes, Sergeant Blaine. Today is one of his worst meals. I remarked, but there aren't even Marines sitting around and drinking coffee. The corporal answered, I forgot to tell you about that. His coffee is always terrible. Then he added, I can get you some MREs. Ben swore. What sort of so-called cook did they have here that the scumsucker couldn't even make coffee? I took the corporal up on his offer by announcing as loud as I could, Jack, I'm not eating this shit because it will probably make us sick. Let's get some MREs. The corporal began to leave, and I asked, Corporal, how about you bring back 3 MREs, one of them being for you? And also if you could find me a couple bottles of wine and some butter packets. I pulled a 50 out of my wad of cash in my pocket, handed it to him, and said, we'll be waiting in our room getting our packs ready. We headed toward the room as the corporal took off on his mission. I looked at Jack and remarked, Jack, it's nice as hell having an aide. Don't you feel like a toad for giving him so much shit? Jack replied, Ben, you know I do, so don't bother asking me. I could get used to this sort of treatment. Hell, this is better than Russia. I reminded Jack, speaking of Russia, don't you think you should contact Masha before we bug out on our long-range patrol, an extended mission away from base? He swore, shit, Ben, you're right. But I don't have any idea where I can do that. I said, well, let's go back to the room, prep our pack and weapons, and wait for the corporal. We will make time for you to call Masha after we eat. We hauled to the room, prepped our packs, and got our weapons ready. The corporal showed up with enough MREs to choke a horse, 3 bottles of wine, and a shitload of butter packs, and said, I figured you needed some MREs for your field rations. I hope I brought enough. I looked at the loot and praised him. Good thinking, Corporal. Jack smiled and said, Corporal, you're in for a real treat since no one doctors up an MRE like Ben. I heated the MREs, opened them up, added some wine, butter, salt, pepper, and a little bit of the Tabasco. Then I passed them to Jack and the corporal. Jack took a whiff of his and exclaimed, one of Ben's best. The corporal dug in and remarked, wow, I didn't know an MRE could taste so good. If I knew how to do this, I might not ever eat in the mess again. While we ate, I asked, Corporal, Jack would like to take a few minutes to talk to his wife back home after we eat. Would you help us with this? He answered, usually there's a big line for the phone, but my buddy is in charge of the calls home, so I should be able to slip Sergeant Reynolds, Indiana. Jack looked at the corporal and said, let's finish this now and go make the call. I practically laughed as Jack and the corporal wolfed down the MREs. Jack stood up and said, Ben, I hate to leave this to you, but make one final gear check while I make the call. I was going to do this anyway. They took off, and I took the time to empty out Jack's pack, packed it correctly, and pre-adjusted the straps. I looked at my UOP and decided to load up more of the pain pills for Jack. They came back, and Jack looked like hell. Flashback, Masha, childcare, and a call from Jack. Louise wasn't able to answer some of my questions about Linda and felt embarrassed. I realized why, so I said, Louise, you don't spend the time with her to know the answers, so do not feel bad about it. We finished dinner, and Louise said, I should probably get home. I hopefully asked, couldn't you stay a little longer? She shook her head and replied, sorry, Masha, but with the limited time I have off work, I spend most of it working around my apartment. She picked up Linda. I walked them to the door and waved goodbye. Once again, I was alone in this big house. I looked at the open bottle of wine from dinner and decided to have another glass. It tasted so good. The next thing I knew, the bottle was empty. I was shocked when the phone rang since this had never happened before. I stood up and realized I had more wine tonight than I should have as I staggered to the phone. I answered the phone with a very soft, hello. I was so happy when I heard, Masha, this is Jack, how are you doing? My heart did flip-flops. I didn't know what to say. In fact, I couldn't do anything. I cried and whined, Jack, my Jack. He frantically asked, Masha, what's wrong? I blubbered into the phone like a little girl, Jack, please come home. Jack answered, Masha, don't be unreasonable. You know I can't do that. He was correct. I fought back my emotions, prepared to talk to Jack like his loving wife, not the little girl that I had unfortunately become. Then Jack said, Masha, I just wanted to tell you I love you. I wish I had more time to talk. However, I need to go, and I'm not sure when I can call again. With that, Jack ended the call. I broke down and sobbed into my hands. Flashback, Jennifer and Glenn, trying to solve a huge problem. We finished the song, and Daniela said, I came to tell you I am leaving for the night, and will be here tomorrow morning bright and early to make a breakfast for you. I answered, thank you, Daniela, for the great dinner tonight. Have a good rest of your night. She replied, and thank you, Miss Jennifer. Sleep well. She left, and Daddy asked, well, my little princess, do you feel better now? I complained, and then said, Daddy, please don't get started on the princess garbage again. I don't have the energy to fight you right now. Yes, Daddy, I feel some better, but I'm still a little sad about Mother leaving us. Daddy offered, Jennifer, we can both go to counseling if you think it would help. I thought for a few seconds and hoped, perhaps the whole family could go together? Daddy made me sadder when he answered, Jennifer, I have called Evelyn many times, and she doesn't answer her phone. If she does answer, I will ask if she would like to join us, because I think we need some counseling. Now, my prin, I interrupted, exasperated, Daddy, please see. He smiled and said, now, my lovely daughter, it's time for you to go to bed. I smiled, that's much better, Daddy. Good night. Daddy answered, good night. Sleep tight, don't let the bedbugs bite. As soon as he left my room, I jumped out of bed, turned on my computer, went to our mobile phone provider's website, and searched for the location of Mother's phone. I was confused when it displayed the location. Flashback, Alexei, at the laboratory. Before I went to sleep tonight, I made a decision. I would ask the psychologist to see my mother tomorrow. My curiosity had been piqued by Chow Main's attack on her, and I desired to see and document the results for the experiments I was conducting on Chow Mein. Since I successfully avoided all my pills, the only medicine I was taking were the continued injections which Father administered several times a day. I couldn't devise a way in which to not take the injections. As I drifted off to sleep, my mind continued to work on the geometry problem of trisecting angle. Flashback, Mira and Ira, back in Kazakhstan. Ira and I labored on the tree branch trap. I created many wooden spikes and transplanted them into the branch, while Ira constructed the 4-figure trigger. We completed our separate tasks at a matching time, then I began to strip the clear threads from inside my coat. It required more time than I originally assumed, so Ira suggested, Mira, you continue with this trap while I begin to work on the boulder trap. Ira left, and when I finally obtained enough of the clear threads for the stake trap, I connected the multiple pieces together, strung them across the trail, and connected them to Ira's 4-figure trigger. Then I made a hasty translocation to the boulder trap, which Ira had almost completed. God smiled upon us because we completed the boulder trap just as our auditory units detected many voices emanating from the trail. We waited very impatiently for our adversaries to enter the narrow trail. When finally they arrived, our auditory units detected multiple voices as they remarked, I can't believe all the team members they have already killed. At least the deaths inside the truck were fast. I would have hated to be one of the poor scumsuckers who burnt to death. We need to make sure we don't commit the same mistakes. They did not commit the same mistake. However, their new lapses resulted in a similar result. Ira looked at me and ordered. I had calculated the trajectory of the rock and the approximate velocity of the rock down the hillside. I looked at Mira and ordered now. Our lower pedal units were against the boulder as we pushed with all our strength. The boulder created a huge crashing cacophony as it translocated down the hillside. Our adversaries vocalized as young girls, but neglected to translocate to avoid their demise, while I began to shriek in joy. Mira joined me, and we oculated as the boulder decimated more than half our adversaries. The remainder began a run down the trail, triggered our tree branch trap, which unfortunately impaled only 2 of the adversarial troops. I ordered Mira, we must acquire their advanced weapons before the remnants regain their sensibilities and terminate us. We sprinted down the hillside, acquired their inferior Kalashnikov weapons, then Mira suggested, Ira, we need to terminate those who survived. I stated, Mira, first I must exchange my accoutrements with one of the adversaries. The fecal matter in these accoutrements is infecting my injured nether regions. I expected Mira to tease me, however she agreed. Yes, Ira, they have superior accoutrements which would match our size more closely, especially the protective pedal coverings. We took the time to exchange our accoutrements with our dead adversaries. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. Talk about having the piss scared out of you. Confronting a tiger is a surefire way to have that happen. As I relieved myself, I considered my surroundings and asked what the hell a tiger was doing here. There shouldn't be any wild tigers in this area. Not only was it too heavily inhabited, There was no way the locals would put up with a tiger. They would have hunted it down and killed it. They were not indigenous to this area. It was like a light bulb went off in my head. The tiger was here as a deterrent to people like me coming in to execute the scumsucker and to keep his workers, which were really slaves, from escaping. Suddenly my mission became that much more dangerous. Not only did I have to watch for troops, I needed to keep my eyes out for dangerous predators. And if he had a tiger on the loose, there was no telling what other animals were lurking in the jungle. I decided that to continue this mission tonight would not be wise, so I climbed far up into a tree. I found a good spread of branches, wedged myself in well, and even tied a rope around me and the branch, and drifted off to sleep. And what a sleep it was. I had a great dream of the island with Lou and Lynn, present, Bernie and Liz, at the cabin. I look at Liz and ask, since we took care of the problem with the twins, is there anything else we need to do here? Liz grins at me and says, Bernie, I'm itching to find out if I'm preggers, so I would love to use the home pregnancy test before we leave. Besides, if I am preggers, it would be good to know before we shop for a house, because we might need something larger than we originally talked about. Yeah, Liz and I discussed getting someplace small and quaint, but that was before we thought she might be pregnant. I smile at Liz and tease, don't forget to clean yourself first. Liz gets sassy with me. Bernie is certainly in a playful mood, but that's okay since I can dish it out with the best, so I offer, well, you could always come in with me to help make sure I'm clean. He laughs and answers, sorry, I already have a job. I'm the official clock watcher. Besides, if I did come in to help clean you up, you'd probably end up dirtier than before we started. He winked at me, and I knew that he was intimating sex, so I continue to tease. Okay, but you don't know what you're missing. Bernie laughs and says, Liz, I sure know what I would be missing, but I want to wait until after the test. I enter the bathroom, clean myself with a provided wet wipe, then pee on the stick. I set it on a paper towel on the counter, cover it with another paper towel, and yell at Bernie, start your watch. This has to be the longest 5 minutes of my life. Knowing that at one time I could never have children, I hadn't thought much about what life would be like with one. Now I needed to face the cold, hard reality, which might change. Present, Samantha and Stacy, at the cabin. Wow, Stacy is really broken up over Ben marrying Jennifer. I thought she was stronger than this, but after Liz tells her that Jennifer and Ben are having sex like horny rabbits, she breaks down and cries. I hold my BFF and say, Stacy, you need to get over this. You're much too good a woman to be pining over Ben. Stacy sobs, Samantha, that's not true. I am barely good enough for Ben. However, Jennifer surely isn't good enough for him. What the hell does he see in her? I have done some research on the two of them and try to provide Stacy an answer. Stacy, the only thing I can think of is the common bond they share as Marines. I think a bit more than add, oh, and the fact that she's been pursuing him like crazy for years. Stacy surprises me when she says, I can't accept Samantha's evaluation of why Ben married Jennifer. UGH. I look at Samantha and counter, I don't agree with all of your evaluations, Sam. I think that Ben married her simply because he got tired of being chased by her. If I had been smarter, I would have chased after Ben harder. Samantha reminds me, Stacy, you tried your hardest to find Ben, but your crazy satellite told you Ben was heading to California. I look at Samantha, snap my fingers and say, Samantha, I could almost kiss you. I'm sure that Jennifer hacked my satellite, and since we're here at the cabin, I bet we can find some proof. Samantha asks, Stacy, how do you plan on doing that? I smile and answer, by getting into the tunnels and hacking into her computer system. There has to be some sort of trace of the satellite hacking left on her system. Why don't you keep doing your reports for Liz, and I will see about getting into the tunnels. I begin to head toward the garage, and my phone rings. Present, Liz and Bernie, at the cabin. I haven't been able to watch the home pregnancy stick because I haven't really dealt with my own emotions on whether or not I want to become a mother. Bernie yells through the closed door, Liz, it's time. I remove the paper towel covering the stick, look at it, and now I know. Bernie yells, Liz, are you okay? I open the door, hold up the stick, and say, Bernie, it looks like we're going to be parents. Bernie's enthusiasm astounds me. He runs to me, picks me up, swings me around, and says, Liz, that's the best news I've ever heard. Now let's get out of here and go find a house. Bernie puts me down. We head toward the exit, open the door, and find Stacy right outside. Bernie blabs, Stacy, we're going to have a baby. Stacy smiles and offers, congratulations to the both of you. I didn't know you were trying. I announce, well, we weren't really, but it just sort of happened. Stacy asks, I need to go to the bathroom. Do you think it would be okay if I used one of them in here? Stacy's been so great with us I figure it won't hurt, so I say, sure. It's down the hallway on the right. Just close the door on your way out, and it will automatically lock. Present, Stacy, in the tunnels. Getting into the tunnels was almost too easy. I pull out my phone, call Bill, He had called me earlier and I told him to get his butt to the cabin and announce, Bill, I'm in the team, and you need to get here as soon as possible. I begin to wander through the tunnels, and I'm amazed at how nice they are and how much room there is. I carefully check each room and finally walk into a storage room. I'm really surprised upon finding the back wall has slid open and reveals what has to be Jennifer's UGH computer center. My phone rings. Bill has finally arrived. I head back to the door and open it as he and a small contingent of men walk in. I say, Bill, the computer center is this way. I take all of them to the computer center. The other men begin to work on the computer systems while Bill is examining the door. He turns, smiles at me, and says, this is really something. It looks like a certain combination of circuit breakers opens the door. I would say we're lucky as hell it was open, otherwise we never would have found this. I smile since it's about time I started to have some luck, other than bad luck, on my side. Present, Masha, Jack, and the children, Leadville Airport. We land safely at the Leadville Airport, and Ivan begins to clap. Ms. Mabel looks at him and asks, Ivan, why are you clapping? Ivan remembers from his early childhood. Ms. Mabel, I clap for good and well landing like we do in Russia when airplane land. Ms. Mabel remarks, I have never heard of that, but it does sound like a good tradition, so she begins to clap and I decide I might as well join them. Jack had fallen into a drunken sleep, wakes up and asks, why is everyone clapping? What's going on? Ivan says, Papa, we clap for good and well landing. Jack says, that sounds like a good idea. Then even he begins to clap. The pilot announces, please stay in your seats and keep your seatbelts fastened. We have another C-130 coming in right behind us, so we need to move out of the way. It seems like forever until the pilot finally announces, okay, we've stopped so you can all exit the aircraft. I look at Ms. Mabel and ask, Ms. Mabel, Jack's back has gone out, and I was hoping you could help me. She interrupts, heavens yes, I will help you. What can I do? I reply, if you could help with Veronica and Ivan, I will take care of Jack by myself. She replies, I certainly will. Ms. Mabel takes Veronica in her car seat and the diaper bag while I tell Ivan, you follow Ms. Mabel while I help your father. I move over to Jack and ask, honey, we need to exit the airplane. Are you up to moving? Jack grimaces as I help him up. I put his arm over my shoulder. He leans on me with most of his weight, and we shuffle for the back of the plane. We reach the door, begin down the ramp, and I see someone who might be able to help us. Present, Tom and Inga, Leadville Airport. I don't know whether to be pissed at Inga for her bad joke or be thankful she's still on my team. We start down the ramp at the rear of the C-130 and Inga says, Tom, do you hear that? I look at Inga and ask, hear what? She points and says, look at the other C-130. Isn't that Masha and Jack? She seems to be yelling for us. Masha begins to wave and I comment, great, I wonder what those two want. Inga doesn't answer me and begins to run toward the other C-130 while I decide to take my time. Then I see them taking a stretcher out of the C-130 and decide someone's hurt, so I'd better haul. I get to the other C-130 as they are loading Jack on the stretcher and ask, what the hell happened? Jack answers, my back went out. Inga is examining Jack and says, Masha, I think we need to get Jack to a hospital instead of the cabin. Masha agrees. Yes, Inga, I feel your evaluation is correct. Jack does require the services of a hospital. Jack plays his normal role and complains, I'm sure not as hell going to a hospital. I give everyone some bad news. Well, if Jack's going to a hospital, it needs to be in Denver because the hospital in Leadville closed a few years ago. Jack says, that settles it. I'm getting off this stretcher. He begins to get off the stretcher, tries to stand up, lets out a yell, and passes out. Inga says, Tom, please help me get Jack back on the stretcher. I help Inga. Then I take one of the straps and begin to strap Jack down. Inga adds, thank you, Tom. That's a great idea. We strap him to the stretcher. I look at Masha and say, let me go talk to the pilots and see if they will take all of us to Denver. I go up front, talk to the pilots, and they agree to haul all of us to Denver. I head to the back of the plane and say, well, let's load up. We're all going to Denver. They button up the C-130. We all take our seats and begin the flight for Denver. I'm shocked when Inga pulls out a wad of bills that would choke a horse and begins to count them. Present, Glenn and Hammer, in the jail. I can't believe it, being locked up for vagrancy. This two-bit sheriff must be on some sort of power trip. The only good news he gave me was that he and my new son-in-law, I sure as hell like the sound of that, were good friends in high school, and that he was going to do everything he could to find my Evelyn's body. The sheriff is on the phone, and when he finishes, I ask, why isn't Samantha still in jail? He looks at me and replies, well, I had her here, ready to lock her up for good, but then Stacy Summers had her high-powered lawyer threaten me. I cut him off. Don't tell me you're afraid of her lawyer. You didn't do anything wrong. He glares at me and says, that's right, I didn't. But you threatening Stacy and Hammer asking her for a drink landed me in hot water. I think back to what happened earlier, then ask, so, when do you plan on letting us out of here? The sheriff chuckles. I was thinking about the time hell freezes over. Now, if you don't mind, you're keeping me from searching for your wife's body. So how about you shut up and cool your heels? He turns back to his phone calls, and I glance over at Hammer, who's starting to wake up. He finally sits up and groans. What the hell hit me? A damn bus? I laugh. It wasn't a bus, it was the sheriff's taser, and you deserved it. Hammer scowls. Why the hell do you say that? I glare at him. Because you asked Stacy for a drink, and you screwed everything up. The sheriff had Samantha in custody, but thanks to your drinking, he had to let her go. Hammer grumbles. I'm not a damn drunk. I smirk. Hammer, when was the last time you went a full day without taking a drink? He shrugs. So what if I like a little sip now and then? It's not hurting anyone. I level with him. Unless you get help and sober up, we're done working together. Hammer crosses his arms. Well then, I guess we're done because I'm not going to rehab for a problem I don't have. I turn to the sheriff. When do I get my phone call? You must have forgotten. Stacy isn't the only one with high-powered lawyers. The sheriff answers, give me a minute. He comes over to the cell and orders, Hammer, move to the back of the cell and face the wall. Hammer complies, then he orders me, Glenn, come here and stick both your hands through the same space in the bars. I do as ordered. The sheriff puts a pair of handcuffs on me, takes out his taser, opens the cell door, and I walk out. He closes the door, takes me into an interview room, hooks my handcuffs into a bar on the table, which is bolted to the floor, and places the phone within my reach. I drop my Scottish accent as I talk to my lawyer and explain to him the details. He says, don't worry, we should be able to get you out of there. Now let me talk to this sheriff. I call the sheriff over, hand him the phone. He talks to the lawyer, hands the phone back to me, and my lawyer advises, Glenn, I didn't know you threatened Stacy Summers, and that the sheriff has a video of what happened. Because you were working as one of his deputies, he has you dead to rights. He told me he plans on holding you for the rest of the day and releasing you tonight. So I would suggest you count yourself lucky. I hang up the phone, look at the sheriff, he smiles at me and says, that didn't quite work out like you planned. Now if you're not any more of a pain in the butt to me, I won't let you and Hammer out tonight. I answer, I could score less a bit Hammer and would recommend you keep him in jail. He will need GIE treatment for his alcoholism se we hay parted ways. The sheriff grins and threatens, perhaps I will release him into your custody. That way if he gets into trouble, it's your butt too. I complain, teach lest him I'll want his tay be responsible for at bluttered. The sheriff laughs, then leaves and I hope to God he's not serious. Present, Safia, Ira, and Mira, on the hunt. Luckily, I get all of us out of the beauty salon without Mira killing anyone. However, because of Myra's rash actions we are no closer to finding the 304 and Yasmin than we were earlier. I look at Mira and complain, I told you that I should handle the beauty shop. Now because you ignored me. We have no idea where the 304 and Yasmin went. Mira challenges my statement. If you would have let me eliminate one of the other females, Sally would have provided the information. Ira interrupts us and suggests, Sally has contacted the constabulary by now therefore we need to vacate this locale. I say as I pointed down the street, well, if they were headed in this direction when they were last seen, they probably continued in the same direction. We begin to run down the sidewalk, and I hope we are headed in the correct direction. Could Mira and Safia become more dysfunctional? My logic informs me their hormonally infected minds have been overtaken by the lust of blood. Safia, because of Alexi's dalliance with Zarika, demands Zarika's death in retribution. While it is obvious to me that Alexei has become a dog of horny and copulates readily with any female available and must be responsible for the situation. In the while mean, Mira has exceeded Safia's madness. She is determined to eliminate any and all females with which her Ben might have copulated, including his current bride Jennifer. My suspicion is Ben has indeed had many females, and that Myra's occupation will consume many months if not years of time, and will eventually result in her Ben hating her. I realize my mistake in allowing both of them on this mission. Never again will I trust a hormonally challenged female carrying a dreaded fetus. I suggest, Sally will certainly inform the constabulary regarding the direction of our meanderings. Therefore, we need to translocate in a new direction. Safia complains, Ira, if we depart from this path we might never find the 304 and Yasmin. Mira further states, my sister Ira has become a pullet. She is overly concerned about the local constabulary when it is logical to continue on our current path if we desire to eliminate the terrible teens. Such action is of primary importance to me now that I possess the knowledge my Ben had coitus with them. I challenge and tease Ira, whack. Ira has become a pullet. Ira complains, Mira, I am not now nor will ever be a pullet. What I am is the only corporeal entity who is not infected with hormones from a dreaded fetus. Therefore, my logical functions are not impeded. Safia also teases, wah wah wah. Ira is upset that she and Todd never copulated and that she isn't pregnant. Mira, we need to change her diaper. Ira stops and says, I will not further tolerate either of you. I will find the terrible teenagers without your assistance and will eliminate them. With her statement, she translocates away from the main thoroughfare. Safia says, Mira, it is better for us to not be burdened with her. I, however, was not convinced of that statement, especially with what occurred next. Present, Alexei, captured. After Zarika attacked me, I awakened to find myself gagged and tied to a chair. I struggle, which only succeeds in making the chair fall on its side. I attempt to scream, and the noise attracts the attention of Zarika. She walks into the room and laughs. Well, it's about time you woke up. I try to plead with her, but she just laughs, forces the barrel of her AK against my crotch and threatens, you know, I should blow your balls off for assaulting me. I struggle even more trying to escape impending death, but Yasmin comes into the room and orders, Zarika, you can't blow Alexei's balls off yet. We still need him. Zarika admits, yes, I guess you were right. She roughly shoves the AK against my crotch and it hurts like Hades. I fight the tendency to succumb to unconsciousness. Present, Yasmin and Zarika on the run. I need to keep Zarika from killing Alexei because my plan is dependent on him. I catch her torturing him and secretly wish I could have done the same to the men that assaulted me. I consider the possibility that once we have taken care of Safia and the twins and Zarika kills Alexei, we could find the men who assaulted me and kill them. I move Zarika out of Alexei's room and scold. Zarika once again, you cannot kill him yet. Not until he serves his purpose. Zarika smiles and says, yes, then I will blow his balls off and watch him slowly bleed to death. Flashback, Jack and Ben, the trip to hell. Ramadi. I couldn't believe my phone call with Masha. She sounded terrible and cried the whole time. It was so bad I actually considered going to Colonel Maggie and telling her the truth about the MRI and my back. However, I also realized that my medical retirement pay would never cover our expenses. Yeah, I was up creek without a paddle. When I got back to the room, Ben took one look at me and asked. Jack looked like hell when he got back to the room, but I could tell it wasn't from his back. This meant it had to be caused by his phone call with Masha. I asked Jack, what the hell is wrong? Jack asked the corporal, how about you give us a couple minutes? The corporal replied, sure, but don't take too long because Colonel Maggie will have my butt if I don't get you to the CNC soon. The corporal left the room. Jack shook his head and said, Ben, something's wrong with Masha. All she did was cry on the phone. Shit, if I could afford it, I would head back to the States right now. I counseled, Jack, what the hell did you expect? You took her away from her home country and left her in America, where she has no friends or support system at all. Shit, I bet she sits in the house alone each night and is lonely as hell. I knew Jack really loved her when he wrung his hands in despair and asked, damn it, Ben, what should I do? I'm over here and she's back in America. Plus, we're going on a LRP and I don't know when I can call her again. I smiled at Jack and suggested, Jack, I can tell you really love her, so why don't we bring some paper and pens and you can write her a letter each day. We can give them to other Marines to bring back to camp and mail for you. Jack smiled and said, thanks, Ben, that's a great idea. Now I just need to find some paper. I let him know I had it taken care of. Jack, I already put some in your pack along with about 10 pens. Jack grinned at me and said, you sly devil dog, you had this planned all along. But why 10 pens? I laughed and answered, because I know you're going to lose most of them. Jack glared at me and protested. Well, I haven't lost the key for the room yet. I countered, are you sure? If so, then show it to me. Jack reached into his pocket and swore, son of a bitch. Where did I leave that damn key? I laughed, held up the padlock and said, you left it in the lock when you unlocked the door. Jack offered an excuse. Well, I was distracted. I interrupted his bullshit. Yeah, right. Don't worry about it. We need to give this key to the corporal anyway. Jack thought for a moment and asked, do you think that he would make sure my letters got mailed to Masha? I teased, I don't know what he'll do after all the shit you gave him. He might just throw them in the trash. The corporal came back into the room and I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing when Jack apologized again. Hey, listen, I really am sorry about being such a pain in the butt earlier. The corporal replied, don't worry about it. Now we need to get you two to the CNC before Colonel Maggie has my butt. Jack grabbed his pack and rifle. I grabbed my Eberlstock pack, which contained my new rifle in the scabbard, and Jack asked, hey, Corporal, if I write some letters to my wife back home, and we send them back with other Marines, do you think you could put them in the mail? The corporal said, sure, no problem at all. I handed the corporal Jack's key and said, this is a key for our room. You're welcome to stay here or wherever you want. Just make sure it's locked when you leave. He smiled at me and answered, "Gee, thanks." I liked staying in the room, but it was a pain in the butt to get someone else to watch your ammo while I took showers or ate. Now I won't have to worry about it. We followed the corporal out the door. He put the padlock on the hasp and made sure it was locked. Then we walked toward the CNC. We entered the CNC, and it was a beehive of activity. The corporal led us to the briefing room, which was full of Marine and SEAL snipers. Colonel Maggie walked up and said, "Perfect timing. We're just going over the missions for today. Grab a seat, and we'll get going." Jack and I grabbed a seat. Jack leaned over and whispered, "Damn, this is one hard-looking group of men." We recognized a few of them and exchanged head nods and waves. The naval commander in charge of the SEAL teams went first. I was shocked when he reached the rules of engagement, what you are allowed and not allowed to do to kill the enemy, as the SEALs had to write a shooter's statement for every kill they made in Ramadi. He went on to explain that the report would be separate from after-action reports and was related only to the shots they took and kills they recorded. The commander continued with the bullshit when he ordered that the information had to be very specific and had to record the day, the time, details about the person, what he was doing, the rounds they used, how many shots they took, how far away the target was, and who witnessed the shot. All that had to go into the report, along with any other special circumstances. Jack leaned over and whispered, "What a load of bullshit." The commander told each SEAL where they were to deploy. He finished and left the briefing room. The SEALs began to move out as Colonel Maggie took the stage. All that were left in the room were Marines, so she looked at us and said, "Unlike the commander, I know and trust my sniper teams, so we will dispense with the bullshit of logging each shot that you take." You could almost feel us, along with the rest of the teams, sigh in relief. Hell, being a sniper was hard enough, but having the brass on your butt to document each shot you took was too much. Colonel Maggie then said, "I will meet with each of you in private to give you your deployment instructions." She called the teams up one by one, gave them their assignments, and they left. Finally, she called Jack and me. We walked up to her while a squad of Marines followed us. She smiled and said, "We have a special mission for the two of you. You and this squad of Marines are going to infiltrate and clear the building across from Ramadi General Hospital. Naturally, their hold on this building is critical to controlling the hospital. The insurgents are also currently using the hospital to treat their troops and attack our troops whenever we get close to it. Not only that, if any Iraqi policemen are taken to the hospital, they are later found beheaded. The hospital is a high-value target, and the personnel would be difficult to replace, so we can't just blow the hell out of it. We need you, Jack, and this squad to do a surgical removal of the insurgents while causing as little damage to the hospital as possible. I'm sure you have questions, so please voice them." Jack remarked, "I guess the scumsuckers don't follow the Geneva Convention. So does this mean we're limited by it?" Colonel Maggie replied, "That's a good question, and you too need to follow the Geneva Convention as much as possible." I had studied maps of the city, knew the approximate location of the hospital, so I asked, "The hospital is a good distance from here. So are you going to send us there in Humvees? Because that sounds like suicide to me?" Colonel Maggie smiled and answered, "Hell no, you're not take Humvees to the hospital because you're right. They would blow your butts up before you even got there. You're going to take a SURC, small unit riverine craft, is rigid hull, armed and armored patrol boat used by the U.S. Marines and U.S. Navy to maintain control of rivers and inland waterways. On the Euphrates River, you will disembark at the closest point to the hospital, which is about 3 blocks away from the building you're supposed to infiltrate and occupy." The Butterbar, second lieutenant, asked, "Sir, could you clarify the command structure on this mission, and also is there an exit plan?" Colonel Maggie looked at the lieutenant and answered, "Son, because we lost Captain M, you're the officer on this mission, so you will command it. That being said, Sergeant Reynolds and Sergeant Blaine have extensive experience, so it would be wise to listen closely to anything they suggest. As far as an exit plan goes, unless you can secure the building and the hospital, we can't send in choppers for extraction because the insurgents would blow them out of the sky." I smiled at Colonel Maggie, looked at the Butterbar and stated, "Don't worry about it. We will secure the objective." Colonel Maggie closed with, "Good hunting to all of you, and make sure you stay in radio contact with us. Now, Lieutenant, you know where we keep the circs, so get your team there ASAP." We followed the Butterbar out of the briefing room and toward the river. Flashback, Masha, a terrible night and child care. It was morning and I was hurting. I couldn't sleep last night because I was too busy crying and berating myself for my foolish display of emotion when my Jack called. I had totally wasted the whole call and even forgot to tell him how much I loved him. Soon Louise will bring Linda to the house, and I wasn't ready for them today. My only hope was knowing Linda's sleep schedule since I could take a nap this morning while she took her nap. I drank another cup of coffee, grimaced at the terrible taste because I preferred tea, and forced myself to swallow it. I heard a car pull into the driveway. looked out the window, and knew Louise had arrived. I made sure my hair was in place, walked to the door, opened it, and waved at Louise. She took Linda out of the back seat, walked to the house while Linda began to coo when she saw me. Linda's desire to be with me banished all the tiredness from my body. Louise arrived on the porch, took one look at me, and asked, "Masha, you look terrible today. What happened?" I looked at my watch and said, "Louise, we don't have time for me to tell you before work. I will tell you tonight over dinner." Louise said, "Thanks, that reminds me. We're having pizza for dinner tonight, and I'm buying. And you're right, I've got to get going." Louise left, and Linda didn't even complain this time. I was thankful that she offered to buy pizza tonight. I wasn't happy with her choice of foods, but it would be nice to not cook. That way I could take another nap with Linda this afternoon. Flashback, Jennifer and Glenn, an introduction to a different culture. The alarm scared me this morning when it awakened me since I had a restless night trying to figure out why Mother's phone was at the airport. I probably should have woke up Daddy and told him what I found, but I figured he needed a good night's sleep more than I did. I took care of my morning bathroom business, and even took a shower hoping it would wake me up. It helped a little. What I needed was a big cup of coffee. I threw on a pair of normal BDU pants with a pink camo camisole and headed down to the kitchen. Daddy was sitting at the table with a huge plate of food in front of him. I complained, "Daddy, you know that's too much food for you." Daniela walked out of the kitchen with a huge plate of food for me. It was covered with chicken, rice, potatoes, and bread. She announced, "Good Miss Jennifer, I thought I might have to wake you up or serve you breakfast in bed." I gave Daniela my best, smiled, and slightly complained, "Daniela, this is too much food for us for breakfast." Daniela countered, "Ms. Jennifer, this is a traditional breakfast in my country. We like to make sure that the day is started with a healthy breakfast." I countered, "Daniela, you don't understand. Daddy will get even fatter if he continues to eat like this." Daniela ordered, "Senor, please stand up and let me look at you." Daddy stood up and Daniela said, "Ms. Jennifer, you are incorrect. Your father looks very healthy to me." I could tell I wasn't going to win with Daniela. She went back into the kitchen. I sat at the table, leaned over, and threatened Daddy, "If you eat all that food for breakfast, I will hide all your beer and bourbon while you are gone today." Daddy glared at me, but answered, "Jennifer, you don't have to worry since I had no plans of eating all this food. Daniela is from Peru, and they are used to the women and men being fat." It made me happy that Daddy was being sensible, and now that I knew where Daniela was from, I could research the country better, because I really didn't know much about Peru. With the overabundance of food situation handled, I looked at Daddy and confessed, "Daddy, I stayed up last night after you left my room and logged into our phone provider's website. Mother's phone is at the airport and isn't moving." Daddy looked at me and answered, "Jennifer, thank you for doing that. I think we should take a trip to the airport this morning to see if we can find out where she went. Then you and I have an appointment with the psychologist." I complained, "Daddy, I'm not crazy and I don't need to see a frackin' shrink." Daddy placed hand on top of mine, smiled, and said, "Well, I need to see one, so why don't you humor your old man and join me?" Rats. I hated it when Daddy asked me nicely about things like this, so I relented. "Okay, Daddy, but just this one time." Daniela came back out of the kitchen and scolded, "You two are talking too much and your breakfast is getting cold." Daddy and I both took a bite of food and I praised her cooking. "Daniela, this food is excellent. But I am a ballerina and have to be careful how much food I eat because I cannot become fat." Daddy added, "Daniela, there was a time before I sat at the desk all day when I would have gladly eaten all of this food. But if I ate this much food, it wouldn't be long until I wouldn't fit into my uniforms." I supported Daddy with further information. "Daniela, Daddy also has to pass a fitness test every 6 months, so he can't afford to gain more weight." Daniela looked at both of us and said, "I am sorry that I made too much food for both of you, and I will not do that again. This is a typical breakfast in Peru, and I did not want you to go hungry. I am still adjusting to the culture in this country. I do hope you will take the lunches that I prepared for you." I was shocked. Daniela actually made us lunch. When Mother was here, we were lucky if we even got breakfast, and if I was with Daddy, we usually went out for lunch. Daddy answered, "Damn, I hit a home run when I hired Daniela for our housekeeper. Not only did she make us an excellent and huge breakfast, she made us lunch, and I knew we were having something called ceviche for dinner tonight." I said, "Daniela, thank you for making lunches for us, and we will gladly take them with us today. We hope we didn't offend you by not finishing this wonderful breakfast." Jennifer helped out when she agreed. "Yes, Daniela, we are so thankful that you made this great breakfast for us, and even more thankful that you took the time to make lunch for us." I had finished about half my breakfast, Jennifer about a fourth of hers. I looked at Jennifer and said, "Well, let's go and figure out the situation with the phone." Jennifer answered, "Let me first go brush my teeth and use the toilet, then I will be ready." Jennifer looked at Daniela and asked, "May I be excused from the table?" Daniela replied, Let me bring your lunch from the kitchen first. I am concerned that my lunch will be too large for you to finish. Jennifer answered with a question. Daniela, if it is, would it be possible to share it with others? I could tell Jennifer hit her own home run when Daniela gave us a big grin and answered, of course, I made the food to be eaten and it will not be good if you bring it home tonight. Daniela went into the kitchen, came back out with 2 large bags of food, and I knew we would be sharing much of the food with others. Jennifer took the bag and left the table. I took the bag, got up from the table, looked at Daniela, and said, thank you so much for all you have done for us. Remember, if you need anything you can call me on my mobile phone. The number is beside the phone. I will call you later to let you know when we will be home. She smiled and said, do not worry, senor. There is much work around this house to keep me busy all day. I wasn't exactly sure what she meant since I was always happy with the way Evelyn took care of the house, and she didn't seem to spend all that much time doing housework. I brushed my teeth, went to the toilet, and was mostly happy I wasn't sick. Then I went back downstairs and met Jennifer at the car. She gave me more information. Daddy. I checked again, and Mother's phone is still at the airport. We put our lunch bags on the back seat, got into the car, and I replied, well, let's go see why her phone is still at the airport. It was obvious to me that Evelyn had taken a flight to somewhere. I probably needed to check the credit cards to see if I could figure out where she went. Once we were on the road, Jennifer asked, Daddy, do you know what we're having for dinner? I answered, yeah, something Daniela called ceviche. Jennifer supplied more information. Daniela actually said, ceviche mixto. When she wouldn't tell me what it was, I looked it up on the internet. Did you know that it's raw fish, calamari, and octopus? I sputtered, raw? You can't eat that stuff raw. Jennifer added, well, they put those orange peppers, onions, and very strong lemon juice in it. They say the lemon juice cooks the seafood. I asked, Jennifer, do you still have all that extra food hidden in your room? She smiled and answered, of course I do, Daddy. I figured if the ceviche mixto was too bad, we could always say we were still sick from Evelyn's cooking and survive off Jennifer's food. We arrived at the airport. I looked at the parking signs and realized we might have some issues. Flashback, Alexei, at the laboratory. I had a wonderful night's sleep and awakened without chow main's anus in my face. I went to the cafeteria and acquired some cereal, milk, and eggs for breakfast. Then I sat at my normal table and began to eat. Father surprised me when he came in, gathered his own breakfast, came over and sat beside me. I smiled at him and said, thank you, Father, for the great evening last night. He smiled at me and said, yes, it was good. Until I went to see your mother. I boldly interrupted. Father, I have been thinking about Mother being attacked by chow mein, and I would like to visit her today. Perhaps I could cheer her up? Father smiled at me and answered, Alexei, it's shocking how badly chow mein injured her. I am not sure it would be wise. I interrupted with a whine. Please, Father. I feel it is my fault that chow mein went crazy and attacked Mother. He thought for a few moments and answered, Alexei, I will ask the psychologist his feelings on this, and we will abide by his decision. The answer made me happy because I knew the psychologist would agree to my request. Father said, well, Alexei, we need to get back to your room for the injections and your other medications. I complied, yes, Father. I do not want to miss any of my doses. Father said, Alexei, you go to your room first, and I will present your question to the psychologist. It didn't take long for Father to arrive in my room, and he said, Alexei, I have good news for you. The psychologist feels it's an excellent idea for you to visit your mother. But first he wants to talk with you so you are not worried when you see your mother. I hugged Father and answered, thank you. Let's get my injections done so I can see Mother. We finished my injections. I talked to the psychologist. He warned me about how bad Mother looked and assured me they would fix her injuries after they had healed enough. Then they took me to Mother's room. I walked into her room and, flashback, Mira and Ira, back in Kazakhstan, ensconced in our new accoutrements. Our level of comfort was greatly increased. I looked at Ira and commented, we need to discover the locale of our adversaries which escaped. Ira agreed. Yes, Mira, they cannot continue to abide in the realm of the living. We partook of a lateral trail which approximated the path of the main trail and had not traveled far when our auditory units detected the sound of grief. I vocalized at a soft level, Ira, one of our adversaries expresses grief. Ira responded, I cannot believe one of our adversaries is exhibiting grief akin to a young female. Is he a rodent species or a male? We carefully approached the adversary, and then the cause of his grief became obvious. One of Myra's traps of stakes was embedded in the adversary's nether region. I vocalized softly, Mira, I am not ready to eliminate this adversary and thus end his pain because he deserves to suffer for a greater period of time. Mira agreed. Yes, Ira, his deserts are justified. We will bypass his location for the being time and pursue his associates. We were practically past his position when Mira accidentally stepped on a branch. It cracked, and the next thing we knew. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. I was awakened when the sound signature of the jungle once again changed, and I wondered what the hell did it this time. It was light enough that I should be able to see what caused the disruption, but the problem was I was too high in the tree canopy to see the ground. I slowly, carefully, and silently worked my way lower in the tree, and then I saw the disruption. It was a team of men examining the tiger I had killed last night. One of them took out a radio and informed the base of the tiger's death. The voice on the other end swore and shouted in anger. I assumed the voice was my target. He ordered his troops to bring the tiger back to the base. It took them some time as they rigged up a long stick, tied the tiger's paws around it. 4 of them shouldered the pole, and they noisily advanced toward the base. I slipped out of the tree and silently followed my guides. Present, Liz and Bernie, leaving the cabin. Bernie is sweetly holding my hand as we exit the tunnels, walk out of the garage and stroll toward the destroyed cabin. I smile when I see Samantha doing her job. It is a good thing I swallowed my pride and hired her back. I pull out my mobile phone along with the business card the taxi driver gave me and call his number. He answers and says he should be here in about 30 minutes. I relay the information to Bernie. The taxi driver will be here in about 30 minutes. As we begin to walk hand in hand around the destroyed cabin, Bernie smiles at me and says, "Liz, I can't believe it. We're going to be parents." Then he asks a question which troubles me some. "Liz, you had some champagne at the wedding. You don't suppose it hurt our baby?" I really haven't taken the time to study things like that because I assumed I would never have a baby, so I reply, "Honey, I don't think so, because I didn't drink that much." But that's a question we need to ask the gynecologist. Bernie asks, "I wonder what the hospital in Leadville is like." Liz replies, "I'm not sure, but I bet we can ask the taxi driver since he's been a wealth of information." The taxi arrives. The driver jumps out, puts our suitcases in the trunk. Liz and I climb into the back seat. The driver leaves the cabin and Liz asks the driver, "Can you tell us what the hospital is like in Leadville?" The driver answers with a logical question, "Is one of you hurt?" I proudly answer, "Not at all. We just discovered we're going to be parents." The taxi driver practically falls all over himself with congratulations. "Wow, that's great news. Congratulations to the both of you. I hate to tell you, but the hospital in Leadville closed a number of years ago. We do have several doctors here in town who could handle the delivery of your baby." Liz looks at me, leans closer, and whispers, "Bernie, I'm not sure I want to deliver our baby in a doctor's office. Just in case there are any complications, I would prefer a hospital." I reply in a whisper, "What complications are you worried about?" Liz goes on to tell me how she couldn't have babies until Jennifer fixed her. I look at Liz and ask, "I don't understand. What did Jennifer do to you?" She tries to explain, but I don't really understand. Besides, all I really care about is that we're going to be parents. So I whisper a suggestion. "Well, Liz, perhaps we can use one of the doctors here for your prenatal care and do the delivery in Denver?" Liz gives me a big kiss and says, "Thanks, Bernie, for understanding." I don't have the heart to tell her I don't really understand everything. But then again, it really doesn't matter. The driver asks, "So are you two still looking for a place in Leadville?" I look at Liz. She looks at me, and Liz answers, "Well, we're not sure because they don't have a hospital here, and I don't want to have my baby in a doctor's office." The driver continues his line of questions. "So where would you like me to take you?" After finding out Leadville didn't have a hospital, I wasn't sure what other services they offer, so I ask, "Is there a national car rental agency in Leadville?" The taxi driver answers, "Yes, we have an Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Would you like me to take you there?" I reply, "That would be great." We arrive at the Enterprise Rent-A-Car. The taxi driver takes our suitcases inside, sets them close to the counter. I pay him the ridiculously low fare, and he says, "Just call me if you need anything else." After some negotiation, we rent a mid-size car with the capability of dropping it off in Denver 3 days later. I chose 3 days because unlike the East Coast where it's possible to use public transportation, I realize we will need our own car, and I want to spend a few days car shopping. Present, Stacy, in the tunnels. I know better than to hover over my team as they work on hacking into Jennifer's, UGH, computer system, but I'm impatient as hell. I want to get the information on the bitch hacking into the satellite, and then Bill notices the look on my face and interrupts my thoughts. "Stacy, what's on your mind?" I reply, "Bill, if we do discover that the bitch hacked my satellite, I'm not really sure what to do with the information." Bill begins to enumerate. "Well, you could give it to the authorities, but there's a problem with that, because we will have technically committed a crime to obtain the information that she hacked your satellite. Besides, if you are still interested in Ben, that would, in all likelihood, alienate him from you." Bill's correct. However, this isn't nearly as troublesome as it would be if it is ever discovered we had the bodies of Evelyn and Megan. I think it over and then ask, how about if we beat the bitch at her own game? What if we were to take the information and then plant some sort of virus in her computer system? Bill asks for clarification. You mean something like remote control software, which would let you remotely get into her system? I smile and answer, yeah, that would be perfect. We could access her system and then cause all sorts of problems. Bill laughs and answers, yes, you're right there. The computer system controls everything in the tunnels. Let me talk to the technicians and see what they can come up with. Bill leaves. I continue to wander through the tunnels, and then I stumble upon what used to be the bitch's room. I decide to leave the bitch a little present for me. I finish, then I head back to the computer room. Bill looks up when I arrive and says, Stacy, we're finished here and need to leave before anyone discovers what we've done. We exit the tunnels, and I order, Bill, you and the team need to get out of here. I will bring Samantha back with me. Bill leaves, and I wander over to watch Samantha work. Present, Samantha, wrapping up her report. Stacy comes over just as we finish the report. She looks much better than she did before, and I wonder why, so I walk over, smile, and comment, you sure look better than before. Stacy blushes a little and says, yeah, sorry about that. It's just, I interrupt. Stacy, don't worry about it. I understand perfectly. We're finished here for the day, so how about we head back to the building and have a nice dinner? Stacy answers, that would be great since I'm hungry as hell. But no wine tonight. I'm still recovering from all the champagne. We load up the van, and Stacy drives toward her building. Once we're in town, I see a breaking news story and order, Stacy, stop here. Guys, get your cameras out. Present, Samantha and Stacy, the new report. I can't believe what we stumbled upon in this little village. The cameras begin to roll, and I begin my report. Hello, America. This is Samantha Stevens reporting from Leadville, Colorado. What you are observing is a confrontation between the local sheriff and what appear to be two women dressed in military fatigues. While I hate to speculate, I have heard rumors that many of these small towns are home to radical terror groups. Could we be witnessing such a confrontation? Wait, it appears that, yes, a deputy is approaching the women from behind. What are his intentions? I continue. The deputy disabled the women with a taser. I will try to ascertain from the sheriff the reason for this treatment of these women. My camera crew and I jump back into Stacy's van and I say, Stacy, let's follow them to the sheriff's office. Stacy surprises me when she says, after the run-ins I've had with the sheriff, I'm not sure it's a wise idea to follow him to his office, so I look at Sam and suggest, Sam, you need to think about this because I'm not sure it's such a good idea. Look at what happened the last time you tangled with the sheriff. Samantha scrunches up her face and then admits, yes, Stacy, you might be right. He runs this town like it's his dictatorship, and I sure don't want to end up in his jail again. We practically jump out of our skins when someone knocks on my door. I turn, see a woman waving to us, roll down the window, and she says, I couldn't help but see you all, and it looks like you were doing a news report. Samantha leans over and says, yes, ma'am. I'm Samantha Stevens from the Truth Network, and we were doing a report on the confrontation with the two women. The woman says, well, my name is Sally, and if you're interested I can tell and show you what it was all about. Samantha replies, ma'am, that would be awesome. Sally says, well, follow me to my beauty shop where my clients and I will tell you everything. Sally takes off walking, so I make a U-turn with the van and follow her to Sally's beauty shop. EST 1997. We go inside and Samantha gets a hell of an interview with Sally and all her clients. Sally even shows us the video from her surveillance cameras, and I recognize the women. I pull Samantha to the side and ask, Samantha, did you recognize the women? Samantha replies, they sort of looked familiar. I laugh and say, they should because they were at Ben and the bitch's wedding. Samantha gasps, don't tell me. They are Liz's bodyguards. I frown and say, more like Liz's paid assassins. I'm not sure you should really broadcast this report because it might piss them off. Samantha asks, Stacy, are you sure of this? I realize something, so I ask, Samantha, don't tell me you didn't have time yet to read the reports I gave you on them. Samantha looks down and confesses, sorry, Stacy, but you're right. I've been so busy I didn't read the reports you gave me. I was certain that Samantha's dyslexia kept her from reading the reports. There's an easy solution for this. I lean close and whisper so the camera crew won't hear, Samantha, I will read the reports to you when we get back to my building, but before you broadcast the report. Samantha smiles and returns my whisper, Stacy, would you do that for me? I smile and answer, what are BFFs for? We head back to my building. Present, Mira and Safia, on the hunt. Ira transformed into a pullet and fretted about the local constabulary detaining us for my little dalliance in the commerce of beauty, so she departed from us and translocated down a transecting thoroughfare. However, Safia maintains her unassailable logic and accompanies me on our quest to eliminate the terrible teenagers. We maintain an admirable pace on the main thoroughfare considering our current fetal burdens until the constabulary's conveyance bisects the thoroughfare. The constable exits his conveyance, trains his weapon toward our corporeal selves and orders, halt. or I will fire. I begin to raise my weapon when my auditory units detect 2 bursts from our posterior. I begin to pivot in response, however, I am not hasty enough. The taser fired upon our posteriors by the undetected constable find the chinks in our armor of body. The electric charge courses through our corporeal selves, and I threaten as I involuntarily recline to terra firma. If you damage my fetus, I will. Present, Ira, on the hunt observing Mira and Safia. My hormonally challenged sister and her equally hormonally challenged and ill-fated accomplice unwisely decide not to heed my warning about the local constabulary. I oculate from a camouflaged position the interaction between Mira, Safia, and the constable. I desire to vocalize a warning as the second constable creeps of stealth up on their posterior. However, I wisely hold my vocalization to prevent my capture. I do prepare my weapon to possibly eliminate the posterior constable until I notate his weapons are tasers. I even secretly postulate that the electric shock might restore Mira and Safia's logic in a manner likened to electric shock therapy. I continue to oculate as the constables place Mira and Safia in the posterior compartment of his conveyance. They then vacate the area as I stealthily slip down the thoroughfare to further oculate Mira and Safia's final abode of respite. My assumptions are accurate. The constables take them to the local constabulary, where both law of officers take them into the building. Even though daylight is aflame concerning finding the terrible teenagers, my first priority is Mira and then Safia. A short time later, the primary constable departs the constabulary in his conveyance. I stealthily advance from my camouflaged observatory to the portal of the constabulary, rise up, oculate through the window, and notate as the secondary constable foolishly faces away from the primary portal. Without sound, I unlatch the primary portal and enter the constabulary. 2 of the other convicts vocalize a warning which comes without sufficient haste. I pummel the secondary constable's cranial carapace, which renders incapacitance to his corporeal self. Mira and Safia have relinquished their electrically induced incapacitated condition, so Mira smiles at me and orders, Ira, please assist us in vacating this penal institution. I translocate adjacent to the penal institution's iron grate and question, Mira, I refuse your request unless. Mira with fury interrupts. Ira, unless you assist us immediately. It is my turn to interrupt. Mira, your threat holds no liquid while you are ensconced in this penal institution and sealed behind bars. I will not assist you until you and Safia submit to my demand. Mira's countenance displays great displeasure as she inquires, and what is the nature of your demand? My countenance displays mirth as I answer. Because of your hormonally challenged condition, you and Safia must appoint me as leader on this mission and henceforth abide by my decisions. Mira refuses. Ira, I cannot abide with your dictatorial decree. I pivot and begin to translocate to the primary portal when Mira cries, Ira, you must not abandon us. I pivot, fixate my vision on her countenance, and reassert my demand, then abide my decision. Mira states the obvious. Ira, you have us up a fecal tributary without a skull. Safia interrupts. Ira, we will abide by your demands if you allow us to terminate Zarika. Mira interrupts and includes. And Yasmin, the elder dress-apparelled transvestite, whose countenance is slightly familiar, interrupts, in a language I scarcely comprehend. Why you are ye toys after Zarika and Yasmin? Mira's countenance displays extreme displeasure as she informs the transvestite. Because I am carrying my Ben Blaine's progeny, and my sister Ira and accomplice Safia have convinced me he had coitus with both of them. I have taken a vow to eliminate all other females with which my Ben Blaine performed coitus. The elder transvestite bellows akin to a wild animal with the same dysfunctional dialect. Wittichiel, you are ye tellin' me my new son-in-law, Ben Blaine got you pregnant? I quickly notice comprehension flash across Mira's countenance as she evilly grins at the now recognized Glenn Donaldson transvestite. She pats her fetally enlarged abdomen and fabricates a slight lie. Glenn Donaldson, I did not recognize you in your transvestite accoutrements. Yes, I am carrying Ben Blaine's progeny. The Glenn Donaldson transvestite explodes with a vile oath. At son, I a bitchin' whore. I will kill him when I see him again. The other transvestite interrupts with a worse dysfunctional dialect. We ain't feckin' transvestites, ye a bampot bitches. These you are kilts you are wearin'. I display mirth and counter, yet they appear as dresses to me. The second transvestite raises his dress, displays his training tool, and attempts an educational utterance. Ye a bampot bitches. Canny ye see ye dorn't wear underwear under a kilt. I vocalize my mirth. Mira, observe his dysfunctional training tool. Mira likewise vocalizes mirth and another untruth. Yes, it is minuscule compared to my Ben Blaine's. I question how he could satisfy a woman. Both the transvestites are enraged, and their dialectical swearing becomes incomprehensible. Mira ignores the transvestite ignoramuses, looks at me, and pleads, Ira, do not leave us here. Safia likewise vocalizes, yes, Ira, I don't like these transvestites. They smell bad, and it's making me sick. I further display mirth and simply question, who is the leader of this mission? They both finally affirm, you are Ira. I liberate the keys from the incapacitated constable, unlock the penal institution's portal, and we translocate through the posterior portal of the constabulary. Present, Inga, Masha, Tom, Jack, and the children, flying to Denver. My plan of driving Tom crazy is working great. He was sure I was going to leave the team when really I had wagered with almost everyone on the flight that if I delivered Tom an ultimatum, either have a relationship with me or I will leave, that he would tell me to leave. The other crews on the flight couldn't believe that Tom and I weren't already doing the horizontal tango, so it was, as they say in America, like taking candy from a baby. I begin to audibly count my profits, 100, 150, 200. Tom interrupts with a typical, for Tom, complaint. Do you have to do that now and out loud? Masha is across the aisle from us, looks over, sees all the money and asks. I glance over and discover Inga counting a large sum of money while Tom seems to be upset about it. I ask, Inga, where did you acquire such a large sum of money? Inga laughs and replies, Masha, I won it on the flight out here from the other SIF's team members. I blink my eyes and question, Inga, what did you wager? Tom interrupts with a complaint. I don't want to hear this dog and pony show again, so I'm out of here. He leaves. Inga laughs and tells me of her whole plan. The whole exchange impresses me, so I ask the natural question, why are you so interested in having a relationship with Tom? I hate to say it, but he is not the most handsome man I have ever seen. Plus he reminds me of a. Inga laughs and replies, Masha, if I remember my Russian, is a porcupine. And why I want Tom is simple. He's the first man I've ever met that didn't want me. I smile at Inga and pry for more information. So if you finally win, then what are your plans? Inga thinks for a moment, grins at me, and says, Masha, I'm really not sure what my plans are after it finally happens, but I am sure that sooner or later it will happen, even if I have to tie him to the bed and attack him. Inga's words make me more thankful than ever that Jack and I share a deep love and respect for one another. We may have had our problems in the past, but life for us is very good right now. I prepare to ask Inga another question when Tom comes beside me and says, Masha, Jack's awake and is mad as hell. I notice the look Tom gives Inga, which she does not see. Against my previous assertion it appears to be love, and decide that I might have misjudged the two of them. I rise from my seat and move to the back of the aircraft. Jack sees me and swears. Those sons of a bitches have strapped me to the stretcher when I was unconscious, and because we're on AC 130 in flight, I can only assume they are taking me to the hospital. I see Masha walking back toward me and swear, Masha, what in the hell? I thought I told you I didn't want to go to the hospital. Masha kneels beside the stretcher, gently touches my face, smiles at me, and asks, Jack, my love, I know how much you hate hospitals and doctors, but will you please for me and our children let the doctors check your back? Shit. Masha isn't playing fair. She knows that if she asks me nicely and includes our children that it will be damn near impossible for me to refuse. I complain, Masha, that's not fair. Masha approximates that damn patented grin of Ben and says, Jack, my love, how many times have you told me? Everything is fair in love and war. Damn, I hate it when my words came back to bite me in the butt. Present, Alexei, captured. I cannot wait for my sisters to arrive. They will be so angry when they see what Zarika and Yasmin have done to me that they will kill them. But first, before I allow my sisters to eliminate them, I will very forcefully have my way with both of them. Yes, they are in for a world of hurt. Present, Yasmin and Zarika, the plan begins. Finally, some of the less than reputable friends that I made in Denver arrive. I pull them to the side and inform them of my plan. They rub their hands together and Boris, the leader, asks, so when will they arrive? I give Zarika Alexei's mobile phone, which I confiscated, and order, it's time for Alexei to call his sisters. Zarika smiles and asks, so when can I blow Alexei's balls off? Boris looks at Zarika and questions, would you rather blow his balls off and watch him die? Or would you rather know? Boris gives a very detailed description of what Alexei's forthcoming life will be if Zarika doesn't kill him. Zarika's face lights up with a large smile, and she says, you can have the scumsucker. Flashback, Ben and Jack, the trip to hell. On the way to the hospital, we followed the butter bar to the river and climbed into a waiting SURC. I made sure to stow my Eberl stock pack where it wasn't going to get wet while the butter bar looked at me and asked, I hear you have a hell of a rifle in your pack. Damn, I sure didn't want everyone under the sun knowing about my rifle. It was bad enough someone leaked to the scumsuckers we were coming, and they already had prices on our heads. Now I had to worry about some scumsucker taking my new rifle. I sighed and lied. It's an okay rifle, but I sure as hell wouldn't get that excited over it. Jack ruined my lie when he spouted, Ben is being modest, it's a hell of a rifle. I kicked Jack and gave him the hand signal to shut the hell up. The Butterbar commented, well, I just hope you're carrying something besides a bolt-action rifle. We will need some firepower as we clear the building across from the hospital. I assured him of the obvious. Don't worry, sir. I have an M4. I pointed at the M4 hanging around my neck on a tactical sling. Jack swore, Ben, I don't know how you can stand those damn mouse guns. You need to carry a real rifle like my M25. I teased the hell out of Jack. An M4 works fine if you can shoot well enough to hit where you aim. Besides, with the weight of my sniper rifle's ammo, I need to drop weight somewhere, and M4 ammo weighs much less than M25 ammo. Hell, a full mag of my ammo only weighs 1.14 pounds while your M25 magazine weighs 2.3 pounds. Plus, I have 10 more rounds in my magazine. Jack countered, but when I take a shot, they go down instantly. The young officer interrupted. Sergeant Reynolds, you mean insurgents? We use proper terms, not insults. I could tell Jack was feeling bold when he replied. No wonder this war is going so badly for us, with officers like this who worry more about words than winning. I grinned at him and answered, excuse me, sir. Perhaps you would like it better if I called them sand niggers. The Butterbar glared at me and threatened, Sergeant Reynolds, I could write you up for that comment. I countered, you sure the hell could. However, I know Colonel Maggie and she'd laugh your butt out of her office if you did that. Then I figured I needed to smooth things over with the Butterbar, so I continued. Seeing as I don't want to offend your sensitive feelings, I will call them insurgents or tangos from now on. Ben was grinning, so I knew he had something on his mind when he said, not me. That's not what I'm going to call them. The Butterbar focused on Ben and asked, Sergeant Blaine, what are you going to call them? Ben's almost patented shit-eating grin appeared, and he loudly answered so everyone could hear, I think I will call them DAD. That got the rest of the squad fired up. They began to laugh and cheer. The Butterbar glared at them, so the celebration was short-lived. We passed under a bridge which had several sand. Excuse me, insurgents standing on it. The Butterbar freaked out, aimed his rifle at them, and Ben cautioned before he fired. Sir, you don't want to shoot the worthless, lame insurgents. The Butterbar said, Sergeant Blaine dropped the adjectives. They are just insurgents, and why wouldn't I want to shoot them? Ben continued to grin as he answered, Sir, the just insurgents aren't paying any attention to us right now in this SURC. However, if you shoot at them, it will only piss them off, and then we will be targets for every just insurgent from here to our point of departure. The Butterbar wondered, are you certain about this? The Marine driving the SURC replied, yes, sir. Sergeant Blaine is correct. So far, the insurgents don't feel the Circs are a threat, and we like to keep it that way, so please don't fire at them. The driver continued, we're about 2 clicks from your departure point, so get your men ready. I had a pretty good idea that the shit was going to hit the fan as soon as we headed toward the building across from the hospital. I readied my M25 and my 1911 and watched as Ben did the same. Ben suggested to the Butterbar. It was good to see that Jack and I were on the same page since he started to ready his weapons. I pulled up my M4, made sure it was ready, checked my 1911, then looked at the clueless Butterbar and suggested, Sir, not to tell you your job, but you should have the squad lock and load. The Butterbar wisely listened to my suggestion and ordered, Marines, lock and load. The sound of M4S being sport, slap, pull, observe, release and tap throughout the SURC was music to my ears. I threw my Eberl stock pack on my back, loaded my UOP pack on my front, and crouched in the bottom of the SURC. Jack looked at me and passed me some hand signs. Yeah, we both recognized we were working with a green as hell Butterbar. We both also realized it was up to us to keep this squad from getting killed. I acknowledged his hand signals, then Jack ordered, when we hit the beach, Ben and I will exfiltrate first and set up a perimeter. The rest of you follow when we signal. Make sure you stay low and move fast to find cover beside us. Thank God the Butterbar didn't try to countermand Jack. The SURC hit the beach. One of the crew opened the gangway, and Jack took off running. I paused in the front of the SURC, covered him with my M4, and yelled, Next Marine off, come beside me. Jack made it to cover. I looked at the LCPL that came up beside me and ordered, each man needs to cover the next man off the SURC like I did with Jack. Now cover my butt, and whatever you do, don't shoot me. He looked scared, which was good, and answered, Yes, Sergeant. I hit the gangway, ran toward the other side of the beach, found a good cover, looked back and motioned for the LCPL. I noticed the Butterbar was next in line after the LCPL, and was surprised. If he was willing to get so close to the front, he might actually end up being worth more than the powder it would take to blow him to hell. The LCPL headed toward Jack and made it okay. I looked back and motioned to the butter bar. Just as he hit the gangway, a shit. "Excuse me, insurgent," popped up. The butter bar stopped running and began to fire his M4. He missed, but Jack smoked the insurgents. But while I frantically waved for the butter bar to keep running, some rounds hit the SURC, which helped to motivate him to move his butt. He ran toward me, came up behind my cover, and said, "Thanks." I swore and instructed, "Shit. Don't ever stop moving again unless you feel like dying." "The hell?" "Excuse me, the insurgents can't shoot worth shit at moving targets." The firing Jack and the butter bar started had succeeded in waking up the insurgents, and we were beginning to take some fire from one of the taller buildings. I grinned at the butter bar and said, "It's time for me to do the voodoo I do so well." I reached my hand over my shoulder, loosened the cover of the Eberl stock scabbard, pulled out my new rifle, locked the suppressor on the end of the barrel, and slapped a mag home in it. I popped the lens caps up on the scope, found one of the towel. "Excuse me, insurgents," in a window, loaded a round, and smoked his butt. The butter bar commented, "Damn, that was a nice shot, and you didn't even range him." I located the next insurgent and replied, "Anything closer than 300 meters doesn't need ranging." This one was a headshot, and I gloried in the exploding head and the red mist in my scope. The butter bar updated me, "We're all off the SURC." I replied, "Good, now watch Jack and do what he does." I knew without looking that Jack and the rest of the squad with him were taking random turns, popping up above the cover and firing at the insurgents. The butter bar ordered, "Okay, we're going to do this in order." I had just taken care of another insurgent and interrupted with a suggestion, "Sir, you don't want to do that in a set order or the insurgents will figure it out. Give each man a number, and then you call out the number when you want them to return fire." I was shocked again when the butter bar listened and ordered, "Okay, men, you heard the sergeant. Count off." I found the next insurgent, just about the time some rounds danced off the log in front of me. I ducked and swore, "Son of a bitch. Get the rest of this squad returning fire." The butter bar started calling off numbers. The squad was popping up and giving them hell. With the insurgents taking some more fire from our position, they dropped down where I couldn't see them anymore. I stowed my sniper rifle in the Eberl stock pack and suggested, "Sir, we need to advance and get the hell off this beach. We're going to do this just like we did getting off the SURC. I will go first while you all cover me. Then each man will leapfrog after me when I signal. First, everyone give me a long burst to make sure the insurgents stay behind cover." The butter bar asked, "Are you ready?" I nodded. He ordered the squad to all fire, and once they began to fire, I jumped up and ran like hell for the building. I hugged the side of the building and was surprised when some rounds danced across the side of the building. Then I was thankful when I saw they smoked an insurgent who had hung out the window and planned on shooting me. I motioned to the squad, and this time instead of the butter bar coming next, a private ran up. I looked over and saw Jack was well on his way to getting his half of the squad to the other side of the main door. The butter bar came next, worked his way beside me, and commented, "So far this mission is going better than I anticipated." He should have known better than to say that because he jinxed the mission. The next thing we knew, we were taking fire, but not from the side or front. It was from above. I looked up, saw one of the insurgents hang over the side of the roof and fire at us. I pulled up my M4, smoked his butt, and he fell off the roof. I ordered, "Watch out." Then I quickly moved to the side. He made a satisfying resounding smack as he hit the ground, and I pulled up my M4 and put another 2 rounds into him. I could tell the butter bar was going to ask me why, so I simply answered, "Those 2 rounds were insurance." I pointed at 2 of the Marines and continued with my orders, "You 2 are assigned roof detail. If any insurgents peek over the roof, shoot them." The butter bar informed me, "We're all here, Sergeant." I answered, "Great. Now it's time we enter this building. Join on and follow me, making sure to keep your weapons in high ready position." I sent some hand signs to Jack, then he and I both moved toward the doorway. When we were at the edge of the door, I nodded and Jack tossed a frag grenade into the room. I waited till it detonated, then I slowly began to pie my half of the doorway, while Jack pied his half of the doorway. It was great to see the frag had done its work. 2 insurgents were on their way to hell. Jack nodded at me, so I slipped into the room, dropped to one knee, and covered him as he entered the room. I motioned to the butter bar, and the rest of the squad slipped into the room. I told the butter bar before I moved, "Make sure 2 of the men cover our butts." Then Jack and I moved to the next doorway. I checked our 6, made sure we had 2 Marines covering our butts, then began to pie the doorway and... Flashback. Masha, sometimes being a mother is a hard job. I certainly didn't do my best job today while taking care of Linda since I was too tired from not sleeping last night. It made me appreciate the times I remembered when my mother had a bad night and still took such excellent care of me. Yes, I was a lucky young girl because even though I had no father, mother took excellent care of me. She worked all day while I went to Soviet childcare, but she still found so much time for me at night that I never felt neglected. I decided I would try to mirror my mother's actions with Linda. We sat on a blanket in her room, and I began to read a book to her about animals in the zoo. She was fascinated by the pictures of the animals, and we spent as much time with me trying to teach her the names of the animals as we actually did reading the book. Thank God she began to yawn because that was the sign that she was sleepy. I lay her on the blanket, lay down beside her, and we both fell asleep. Flashback, Glenn and Jennifer, a big mess. We arrived at the airport. I looked at the signs for parking and realized we could have a problem. I told Jennifer, if Evelyn parked in the short-term parking lot, it could be bad. Jennifer innocently asked, "Why's that, Daddy?" I said, "Well, look at the rates for parking on the signs. If she parked in the short-term parking lot, it will cost a fortune to get her car out of it." Then Jennifer asked a question I hadn't thought about. I think Daddy forgot about something, so I asked, "Daddy, what are we going to do about moving Mother's car? You know I can't drive yet." Daddy swore shit. I didn't even think about that. Well, let's find the car first, then I can get one of the Marines to come and drive it home. Unfortunately, there was no easy way to find Mother's car. Daddy was going to enter the long-term parking lot first until I suggested, "Daddy, I think we should search the short-term parking lot first." Daddy asked, "Why's that, Jennifer?" I smiled at him and said, "For two reasons. One, it's closer to the terminal, and since Mother is a little lazy, I think she probably used the short-term lot. And second, because the more time we waste looking for her car, the more it will cost if it's in the short-term lot." Daddy made me happy when he praised, "Good thinking, my princess." I stamped my foot in the car and complained, "Daddy, don't you dare." He interrupted me with a laugh. We entered the short-term lot and began to search for Mother's car, which was turning out to be a huge ordeal. Flashback, Alexei, at the laboratory. I needed to see Mother so I could evaluate the damage chow mein did to her for and update my research project on chow mein. The psychologist agreed to my request, so Father, the psychologist, and I walked into my mother's room, and I was shocked when she shrieked, "No, no, no, not him. Get that ungrateful child out of my room." Then Mother began to throw things at me. Father ran toward her, so she began to throw things at him, and continued with her shrieking, "Both of you leave my room. It's your fault that chow mein attacked me. That ungrateful little brat corrupted my beautiful and loving chow mein." The psychologist rushed me out of the room, knelt down, and said, "Alexei, I am sorry you had to endure your mother's rants." I gave him my most innocent smile and asked, "Sir, what is wrong with my mother? She seems like she hates me." Father rushed out of the room, and I observed huge scratches on his face. The psychologist said, "Alexei, we will have a session in my office to discuss what happened and your feelings about it. But first I need to medicate your mother." He looked at Father and requested, "Can you take Alexei back to his room?" Father answered, "Yes, but first I need to deal with my injuries." The psychologist called for some orderlies and ordered, "Please take Alexei back to his room and make sure he's comfortable until I can see him later." They escorted me back to my room where I couldn't wait to document my findings. Flashback, Mira and Ira, back in Kazakhstan. Ira and I tried to advance our way past one of the adversaries who had stumbled into our stake trap. He loudly vocalized like a young female because one of my spikes was embedded in his nether regions. Because of my overtly large petal coverings, I accidentally stepped on a stick which echoed with a resounding snap. That snap triggered an attack from the remaining adversaries, which made me realize the male that vocalized like a young female was bait in the now prematurely sprung trap. The forest erupted in gunfire as Ira and I dove behind a log and returned fire. Ira vocalized, "Mira, your ill-advised petal placement has caused Hades to erupt." I smiled and answered, "Ira, this is good as we no longer need to pursue our adversaries." Ira angrily vocalized, "Mira, I would have preferred to pursue them and eliminate them singly." I stuck my tongue out at me, sister, and concurrently eliminated one more of the adversaries. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. I almost hesitate to call these men soldiers because it would be an insult to all the real soldiers in the world. No, I couldn't do it, so I decided to call them bumbling idiots. Yes, that was suitable for their skill level. They were noisy as hell walking through the jungle. They smelled so bad I could have tracked them with my eyes closed, and one of them farted almost continuously, which elicited laughter from the others as if they were school children. The march back to their camp was painfully slow, and the path they cut through the jungle was immense. I dropped back further so I wouldn't have to smell their foulness anymore, and was surprised when I heard screams and yells coming from them, punctuated with automatic weapon fire. I ducked into some bushes right before one of them ran past me, and was shocked with what I saw chasing him. Present, Liz and Bernie, Denver. Thank God they had a decent car rental agency in Leadville. I was still in shock that the hospital had closed because I really wanted to buy a house with Bernie, settle in, enjoy, hopefully, the remainder of my pregnancy, have my baby in Leadville, and bring him or her back to our house. Bernie programs the trip to Denver into the GPS unit. We follow its directions, leave Leadville, and start down I-70 eastbound, and begin to leave the beauty of Leadville and the mountains behind us. I have conflicting thoughts for the majority of the trip, during which Bernie interrupts. Liz has gotten uncomfortably quiet, which means she's thinking about something serious. I give her what I hope is enough space for her to solidify her thoughts, then I interrupt. Liz, a penny for you thoughts and a 10 for your body. Liz snaps out of her mental state, looks at me and demands, what the hell? My body is only worth 10 measly dollars? I grin at her and taunt. Well, you are an old, almost married, pregnant woman. I knew that would get her goat. She counters, old my butt. If I'm old, you're antiquated, and. It's your fault that I'm pregnant, and not only that, it's your fault we're not married. I begin to laugh and say, Liz, don't get all worked up. I just wanted to know what you were thinking about so intensely. Liz bites her lower lip and answers, damn it. I was too quiet, and Bernie figured out I was thinking of something serious. I hesitate to tell him by waffling, Bernie, if I tell you, you're going to hate me. Bernie reaches over, takes my hand, and says, Liz, are you crazy? You can't say or do anything that would make me hate you. So stop being so mysterious and spill the beans. As we begin to enter the suburbs of Denver, I look around, and what I see helps me to clarify my feelings. Now if I can only explain them to Bernie. I try my best to explain, Bernie, I don't know how to tell you this. But I really miss Leadville. Please see Bernie, I don't want to live in Denver. I want our little house in Leadville where we can make a nice room for our baby and get to know our neighbors. I hold my breath and wait for Bernie's answer. I practically laugh because Liz has been thinking and feeling the same things I've been experiencing on this whole trip. Hell, I've lived in big cities my whole life, and I even grew up in one, so I know what life growing up in a big city is like. And Leadville, though it may not have all the amenities we're used to, has a unique small town charm. Leadville, and the people we met, charmed the hell out of me. They were honest to a fault, hardworking, and extremely friendly. Liz pleads again, Bernie, please, don't be angry with me. I take the next exit, pull into a parking lot, stop the car, turn to Liz, take her hands in mine and laugh. Liz, how can I be angry with you when I'm feeling the exact same way as you? How about we head back to Leadville, drop off this car, get the taxi driver to take us to the realtor he knows, and set up our new life in Leadville? Liz answers, and then asks a hell of a question. Bernie, that sounds wonderful to me. But what about delivering our baby? I grin at Liz and answer, don't worry, I have that all figured out. We will use one of the Leadville doctors for your prenatal care, and when your due date approaches, we will rent a suite in Denver close to the hospital so you can deliver there. And when we have our baby in hand, we can return to the good life in Leadville. Liz gives me a hell of a kiss and says, let's get the hell out of here and back to Leadville. Even though we had just traveled the route, I still programmed the route back to Leadville in the GPS unit and began to follow the instructions. Liz is much more relaxed and vocal as we travel back to Leadville. Present, Samantha and Stacy at the building. We arrive back at our headquarters building where Bill and the crew have already arrived. I look at Sam and say, Samantha, why don't you give me a few minutes to talk with Bill? Then we will. I don't have to finish because Sam knows what I'm talking about and interrupts. Stacy, that will be great. Just show us to our rooms. I motion to one of my crew. He comes over and I explain, please take our guests to their rooms and make sure Samantha's room is right next to mine. They leave. I move over by Bill. He smiles and says, Miss Summers, we have some good news for you. He continues with his report, Ms. Donaldson. I interrupt. You mean the bitch? Bill laughs and continues. Okay, the bitch was really good at hiding her tracks. However, she made one surprising mistake. She deleted all the hacking files on her hard drive. However, she did not securely delete them. As you are aware, when a file is not securely deleted, the data is still retained on the hard drive, just the pointers to the file are removed. So the team recovered some of them, and is in the process of restoring more of them. The initial results prove that the bitch did indeed hack your satellite daily. Now I have one more situation, besides the bodies, to deal with. What to do with this data? I praise Bill. You've done a great job, and please inform the team of how pleased I am with their work. Let them know there will be a little extra in their paychecks this week. I inform Bill. I want you to keep the camera crew and Samantha from sending any reports to the Truth Network for the time being. Samantha did a report on a confrontation between Liz's assassins and the sheriff. I'm concerned if the report is broadcast, the messengers will become targets. Bill nods his head and affirms. Thank you, Ms. Summer, for telling me this, and you are correct. Those women are dangerous as hell and hate publicity. We will lock down all outgoing internet communication until you give us the word. What are your plans now? I trust Bill implicitly, so I tell him. I'm going to Samantha's room to read her the report on Liz's bodyguards. She has dyslexia and hasn't had the time to wade through them. After I do that, I hope she realizes how dangerous broadcasting the report would be. Bill thoughtfully suggests, Ms. Summers, we could get a specialist here to help Samantha with her problem. I ask, it would have to be very discreet, because you and I are the only ones who know about her problem. Bill says, I know just the person. If they aren't busy, I can have them here tomorrow. I head to Samantha's room, open the door, and realize she's in the shower. I yell, Sam, I'm right next door. Let me know when you're done. Samantha calls back, Stacy, I should be done in about 10 minutes. I go to my room, take a look at myself in the mirror, and I'm shocked at how worn I look. I call Bill on the intercom and ask, Bill, could you call Sally's beauty shop and see if she does house calls? Bill answers, Ms. Summers, I'm betting she will be willing to come here even if she doesn't normally do house calls. From what I've heard around town, the people in Leadville are dying to get in here and see what we've done, and she's the biggest purveyor of gossip in all of Leadville, so naturally has the greatest interest in seeing the place. I think for a moment and decide, Bill, let's make sure the place is spotless, have the chef prepare a great snack, and then give her a call. We could use some good publicity. Bill agrees. Yes, Miss Summers, I will do that immediately, and may I commend you on a very wise move. Samantha knocks on my door, comes into my room, and I realize that we need to do something else. I begin to read Sam the report, and I'm sure her eyes get as big as mine did the first time I read it. We're almost done when Bill calls me. Miss Summers, Sally should be here in 15 minutes. Samantha asks, what's Sally going to do here? I answer, Sam, she's coming for 2 reasons. 1, to give both of us the full beauty treatment, and 2, we're going to use her to get good publicity in Leadville. Samantha smiles and says, wow, that's great. I could use a manicure, pedicure, and a haircut. And you're right. The best way to get publicity in a small town is either the barbershop for men or the beauty shop for women. That gives me another idea. Present, Ira, Mira, and Safia, on the hunt. We translocate through the posterior portal of the constabulary office. Mira begins to take the lead and translocate toward the main thoroughfare. So I cease movement and inquire, Miranda Sedankina, to where are you translocating? Mira responds, Ira, we must regain the trail of the terrible teenagers, so I am regaining the main thoroughfare, which was their last known location. I counter, Mira, do you desire for the sheriff to again capture your corporeal self? Because that surely will occur if you continue in your current direction. I begin to lead them in a path posterior to the constabulary office. We traverse sufficiently that I sense we are safe, and then we all pause because Safia's mobile telephonic unit annoys us by chirping a love song. Safia explains, it is Alexei. She then terminates the annoyance. I question, how did you determine it was Alexei without viewing your mobile telephonic device? Safia spits on the ground and says, because the song which played was our song. Mira smiles and inquires. It interests me that Safia and Alexei have a song, and since I desire to share song with my Ben, I further question, Safia, how did you determine the identity of your song? And then how did you apply it to your mobile telephonic device? Safia crimsons slightly and explains, Mira, it was the song which was playing on the stereo the first time well, you know what I mean. Ira interrupts and completes the missing thoughts. I assume you are referring to the first ill-conceived time you two performed coitus. Safia glares at Ira and sasses. Yes, the first time we had wonderful, glorious, soul-shaking sex. Something you and Todd have obviously never experienced. I perceive that a confrontation is pending when Safia's mobile telephonic device utters the same song, so I suggest, Safia, perhaps you should reply to the phone call. She again terminates the song and swears, I don't want to talk to your scumsucker brother now. Not until I terminate the 304. Ira finally explodes. Safia, my Todd and I did not perform coitus because we both desired to await our betrothal night. I glean from Safia's countenance that she will say something to greatly offend Ira. Her offensive retort is interrupted with an unusual sound emanating from her mobile telephonic device. This time, as she looks at the screen of her mobile telephonic device, her countenance pales to white. She drops the mobile telephonic device and stutters, Alexei. 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 Ira, who has already been slightly offended, says, Safia, what are you trying to utter? Safia slumps to the ground and answers, that was a text message from Alexei. I cannot believe it, but somehow the 304 has tricked my love and is holding him hostage. Safia's mobile telephonic device emanates the unusual sound once again. Safia fails to retrieve it, so I acquire it, oculate the picture, share the view with my sister Ira, and she utters, we will eliminate them with the prejudice of extreme. Present, Hammer and Glenn, still in jail. When the phone rings again with its annoying tune, I pick it up. Hammer and Glenn, still stuck behind bars. I can't believe those women made fun of me. Hammer grumbles. They must be out of their minds. Plenty of ladies have been satisfied without complaints. I can see Glenn is still upset, so I decide to mess with him a bit. So, what do you think about your son-in-law now? Especially after he got another woman pregnant? Glenn swears under his breath. I can't believe it. My Jennifer waited her whole life for Ben, and that fool went and got someone else pregnant. He turns to Hammer and growls. Next time I see that scumsucker, I'm going to kill him. Hammer laughs and jokes. Maybe next time, you should just let me marry your daughter instead. I shut that down fast. She's way too good for a drunken fool like you. Hammer smirks and fires back. At least I didn't get someone else pregnant while marrying your daughter. I decide to return the insult with a grin. How many women have complained about the size of your ego? I don't think you're man enough for my Jennifer. Hammer turns red and threatens. Take that back before I knock you out. I raise my fists. Why don't you make me? He lunges at me, but I catch him square on the chin. He drops like a sack of bricks. The sheriff walks in, sees his unconscious deputy and Hammer knocked out on the floor, and lets out a curse. What the hell happened here? I laugh and say, well, you only managed to catch one of the ladies. The second one showed up, knocked out your deputy, and broke the others out. The sheriff glares. Where did they go? I sit back on the cot, arms crossed. Not my problem. I'm not saying a word until you let me go. He scowls. Like hell, I'm letting you go now. He kneels beside his deputy, checks on him, then calls for an ambulance. Present, Jack, Tom, Masha, Inga, and the children, flying to Denver. After Masha threw my own words back at me, she left to check on our kids. Tom wanders over, looks me up and down, and asks, how are you holding up? I struggle against the straps securing me to the stretcher and grumble, I'd be a hell of a lot better if you'd let me go. I'm sick of lying on my back. Tom chuckles. Yeah, Jack, you should know better than to ask that. There's no way in hell I'm letting you go. He smirks. And there's definitely no way I want to face Masha's wrath if I do. I tease him. Don't tell me you're scared of Masha. Tom bursts out laughing. Only a fool wouldn't be. And you know damn well that you are, too. She's got you roped, tied, and branded. I take my shot. Oh yeah? What about you? Inga's got you wrapped around her little finger so tight you'll never escape. Tom glares at me. Screw you and the horse you rode in on. He turns and walks off, leaving me still strapped down. But then I get another chance to escape. My son, Ivan, comes back to see me, dragging Shark along. Ivan and Shark sit on the floor beside the stretcher, and Ivan asks, how Papa feel? I'm sorry I hurt you so much. I smile at Ivan and say, son, I would feel much better if you took the straps off me. Ivan giggles and says, Papa, what Mama say about the straps? She say I not ever loosen them, or you might be hurt bad and worse. Now I sad because I need to tell Mama about Trixie you try to play. He leaves with Shark, and once again I'm alone to feel sorry for myself. Son of a bitch, Masha already talked to Ivan about it. I should have known better. Masha comes back, smiles at me, and says, my Jack, Ivan told me what you tried to do. I am disappointed that you tried to trick him. I complain. Well, Masha, what do you expect? You have me strapped to this damn stretcher. Masha volunteers. Jack, I could let you up, however. Present, Alexei, captured. Zarika gives me my phone. I get excited because I know my sisters, and hopefully Safia, will come and rescue me from these crazy females. I call Safia, the phone rings, but she doesn't answer. Zarika glares at me and threatens, Alexei, you had better hope she answers this time, or I will blow your balls off. She places the barrel of her AK against my balls. I begin to sweat as I call Safia again. This time I put it on speaker. We hear it ring, and then the line goes dead. Zarika gives me an evil look, and I beg, please give me a minute and let me explain. Yasmin, the less crazy one, comes in and says, Zarika, let us hear what he wants to say. I swallow and tell them. Safia is angry at me because she found out I had sex. Zarika jams her rifle into my balls. I scream and beg, please, listen to me. Yasmin corrects me. Alexei, you did not have sex with Zarika. You assaulted her. Now continue. I continue. Safia is angry at me because I lied to her when I told her that Zarika and I had sex, when really I assaulted Zarika. Please, I am so very sorry for what I did to you, but I thought you wanted it. Zarika jams the rifle into my balls again, twists it, and threatens. How in the hell could you think I wanted it when I screamed no the whole time? I changed the subject by offering, look, I can send Safia a text message. You can even take a picture of me with Zarika holding the rifle to my head, and we can send that to her. Yasmin says, Alexei, this is your last chance. You had better hope it works or Zarika is going to blow your balls off. I show Yasmin how to take a picture of me. Zarika thankfully moves the rifle from my balls to the side of my head, where she jams it with enough force to make me bleed. Yasmin takes the picture. I send it to Safia, then Yasmin directs, Alexei, We will give them a few minutes, then you will call then and read this script to them. If you say one word that's not on the script, Zarika will blow your balls off. And you had better hope they follow these instructions perfectly, otherwise, well, you know what Zarika will do. Zarika presses her AK into my crotch again, this time not so hard that it hurt. I place the call to Safia's phone, and I am surprised when Mira answers. However, I don't dare deviate from the script. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.